Okay, hello and welcome to episode 1 of the Red Groove Revolution podcast. I'm your host, Earl Holder, aka DJ Solero. And in continuance of the 24 Karat Black interview series, I'm here with saxophone player for 24 Karat Black, Shakir Suleiman. Am I pronouncing your name correctly, sir? I don't want to mispronounce your last name.
Yes, sir. Shakir Suleiman. My parents named me Dr. Gion Xavier Thompson. They were from the Caribbean. Gion is French, Xavier is French, and of course, those Thompson Indians in the British Columbia, the Nana Pulumak Native Indians up in Canada. I'm a direct descendant from those people. My grandmother was named Thompson before she married my grandfather. So, if you look up Thompson Indians, you'll see my father's side of the family, and if you go to Jamaica, to Kingston, you'll see my mother's side.
Okay. So, Dr. Shakir Suleiman, thank you for availing time out of your schedule to come on the show.
Thank you, sir.
Well, for starters, who inspired you to pick up the saxophone?
My dad, man. My dad was an unusual type cat, man. He used to wake us up playing his tenor. Instead of an alarm clock to go to school, he would play his tenor, or he would wake us up playing his flute, My dad, Joseph, he retired police lieutenant, Chicago police lieutenant. Beautiful cat, man. Got nothing but love for him. But my dad put a clarinet in my mouth at age 3. He loved the saxophone, man. Bird, Coltrane, them cats were his world, man. I mean, I can remember as a baby listening to all the Charlie Parker, all the Coltrane, and Monk and Miles. He knew if I studied classically, I could get the discipline. If I studied classical clarinet, I could get the discipline to master the saxophone. And that's what he was after. He was after a cat that could, actually accomplish what he started out doing. But when he had a family, he had to go for the civil servant job of bus driver, and then the police exam, and then ultimately becoming a police sergeant that ended up having him retire with the status of a police lieutenant, doing all the work. So he hooked me up with a black clarinetist, man, that was a classical clarinetist at age 9. This was Dr. William Clifford King. Very few people know Dr. King. He's in Inglewood, right off 56. Back then it was called South Park. Now it's called King Drive. But Dr. William Clifford King auditioned so many times for the Chicago Symphony Orchestra that they ultimately had to put him as a standby, because at that particular time, there were no black Chicago Symphony Orchestra members. And actually, Dr. King was probably better than everybody sitting in the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. The man was a master clarinetist, okay? At 9 years old, he had me playing 5 and 6 pages of music. Half the time, all I knew was I had a lesson every Saturday, and I had to practice at least an hour a day. So ultimately, that once a week, $2.50 practice session and clarinet lesson, when it came time for me to graduate from grammar school, got me a 4-year scholarship to high school, which was interesting because I played a 7-year-old music lesson. One of them that I liked, it wasn't even a up-to-date, because I was still taking lessons. It wasn't even an up-to-date lesson. It wasn't like a bolero or a Swiss air or a 5-page German air of classical music. It was a simple exercise. And the man took one look at me. He said, "You don't have to play anymore." He said, "You got a 4-year scholarship. Just play in the jazz band, the marching band, and then the regular band. Okay, so let your parents know, and if you agree, tell them to come up and sign the papers and all that kind of thing." So from that point, I knew, okay, Dr. King, you got me in the majors. You got me somewhere else, because I played a 7-year-old lesson. These people want to give me a 4-year scholarship. So doing that, my dad also opened the door for a lot of cats to come through and put together a little small band of cabaret. I was always had a little music aggregate working in the basement of his home, and it grew and grew and grew, and we ended up having a group called the Case of Time. The Case of Time consisted of some local people. The keyboard player's dad was an insurance broker who owned several businesses, so we had all the equipment we needed. All those custom, I don't know if you remember, it's probably before your time, custom instruments, custom organ, and they had padding on the side, custom organs, custom PA system, the custom amplifiers, all of that. It's just, Royal Blue sitting in the basement for us to rehearse on every day. It ultimately led to years of rehearsal. We ended up with a band called Case of Time. Even before that, we had won talent shows at the Regal Theater, where I met people like Gladys Knight, James Brown, those kind of people, Oh, you so cute. She said, I was a little bitty guy back then. But anyway, my dad came home one day when I was about 9 with the saxophonist Sonny Stitt. I don't know if you know Sonny Stitt, but Sonny Stitt.
It's a jazz legend.
Absolutely. Yes, definitely.
Jazz legend.
He came through the crib. My dad said, I want you to meet somebody. I said, oh, okay, Dad. He had me come downstairs to the basement. He said, oh, this is the guy right here. And I was looking at him. I'm like, Dad, who is this? And he said, go get your horn. And I went to get my clarinet. He said, no, go get your other horn. So I went and got my alto sax, right? And he showed me the fingering on the saxophone. Right. It's not like your clarinet up here. When you do this up here, that's your A and your B flat. When you do that, but your A and B flat on the saxophone is down here. So you got to know the difference. He said, yeah, let me show you what I'm talking about. He stuck his mouthpiece on there and blew some licks, and I was like, oh, man. This here is what I think I'm going to be doing, because it was so smooth, so beautiful. And it had a rhythm all its own, man. And it had a grace. It had a grace.
I remember, like early in the week, last week, you had mentioned to me that how your cousin, I believe, Bruce Thompson, actually made the custom made talk box for the late Roger Troutman.
Yeah, back in the day. But that's a whole nother story. That was after we were with 24 Karat Black.
Oh, okay.
Bruce was ahead of his time. Bruce and I, we knew we were Thompsons. Thompsons on my side of the family went both ways. My grandmother, my grandfather, like I said. His mom was a federal judge. Bruce was in the Air Force, and this is how he ultimately got to 24 Karat Black. But in my basement, when we would rehearse after Sonny Stitt showed me the fingering on the saxophone, we put together a group called The Case of Time. And my first recording at Brunswick, 15 years old, man, I mean, everybody used to come through my basement. Do you know the bassist Daryl Jones for come on, man, the most famous group in the world, Rolling Stones. The Rolling Stones, for Miles Davis, for Sting. He was a little kid. His mom and my mom, we lived in the same neighborhood. His mom and my mom were tight. And, he would come through and watch us. Elmer Brown, the trumpet player, he's on Word of Mouth. He's on the first recording we did with Brad McKinney. Elmer Brown, Brad McKinney were the horn section on the first recording I ever did, which I wrote with a guy named Ricky Pinkert called Manifesto. And we recorded at Brunswick Records. In regards to Bruce, you wanted to know how I initially became a member of 24 Karat Black, right?
because Bruce was a member of the band as well, right?
Bruce was the only person I knew that was in 24 Karat Black at the time, you know. As a matter of fact, I was on this thing where I had been practicing so much, I was ready to work, okay? And I was coming to a friend of ours' home, Eldivine Young. LD Young was the bassist for Ramsey Lewis, okay? I've been listening to Ramsey Lewis since grade school. Not so much because of Ramsey Lewis, but because of a piece that Herbie Hancock wrote called Maiden Voyage. When I heard those chords on Maiden Voyage, man, I went to every record store with my graduation money, humming that song and trying to tell them how the song went. Finally, one record cat said, "Oh, you mean Ramsey Lewis?" I said, "Well, let me hear it."
Trying to hum it, yeah.
Yeah, I'm like, do 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 do, and he said, "Oh, Ramsey Lewis," and those 11th chords, you know, those. Yeah, I'm into that. Anyway, suspended chords, and it was the only sound that attracted me at that time. So he gave me the album, and I went. He gave me the 45, and I listened to it every day. But I'm on my way to LD Young's house on 114th Street. I'm coming in the door. Bruce is coming out. And he said, "Hey, man, you want a gig?" I said, "Bruce, you must be reading my mind. I'm coming by here to see LD to see if Ramsey hired me to play saxophone, man." You know, I'm like 17, 18, 19. He said, "Yeah, well, we need a saxophone player, man. Our group is 24 Karat Black." He said, "Look, I'm going to let them know I found a sax player. They're going to audition you." So I said, "Oh, okay." But I still went and talked to LD. LD Young, the bassist. His son was in high school with me. I talked to him about trying to play sax with Ramsey Lewis, you know. And 2-3 days later, I got a call from Bruce. Bruce said, "Look, another guy is going to give you a call. His name is Jerome Derrickson. He's going to audition you. He's our road manager." I said, "Okay." So Jerome called. He said, "Look, meet me at this place at this time. You know, bring your horn." You know, I came. I set up some music. Auditioned for me. He said, "Man, no problem. You in. Don't even worry about anything." You know, I didn't know what I was getting myself into, but I'm thinking, you know, this is great. Ultimately, 2-3 days later, a U-Haul pulled up in front of the house. I told my parents, I said, "Look, these people coming to get me, they want me to play sax." And my dad said, "Oh, yeah, okay, they're going to pay you?" I said, "Well, we're working on that." U-Haul pulled up. Jerome said, "Yeah, man, we're on our way to Memphis, but this is how we rolling, so you can ride up front sometime." He said, "But mostly, I got to pick up a lot of people. You're going to have to ride in the back." So I'm like, okay. I'm riding coach in the back of the U-Haul, sleeping on top of the amplifiers, but, you know, come on, man. 18, 19 years old, you're like, as long as I got my horn with me and I'm about to play, I'm good, you know? So I'm in the back of the U-Haul all the way to Memphis, Tennessee. Got the Stax records, you know? And yeah, Bruce was instrumental in that. Bruce was an organist who had just dipped. He dipped on the Air Force because he didn't like how they were dealing with things. He's just, you know, he couldn't see himself being part of that aggregation any longer. And Bruce was another genius alien type. When I say alien, I mean that intelligence that he had. I mean, Bruce Thompson, if you Google Bruce Thompson, he was recording with computers before all these people started, you know. He was way ahead of his time. He was recording in his home. He recorded some 30-something odd albums or more in his home with computers that He had learned how to build. He had learned his own systems. He had done, MIDI is musical instrument digital interface, right? That's the term, MIDI. And he was considered the MIDI guru. He was a specialist when it came to this. He would go in and align computers to major recording studios, analog systems, okay? And he was the type of cat that would do this stuff on his own because he would dig it. After a while, he had a house full of children. His mother gave him a house, and he had a house full of children. I'd stop by there. Everybody from 24 Karat Black would come by there after we got out, after the 24 Karat Black ended. We would come by there, and there would be, it was like an electronic store, a doctor. His children would be operating on a rolling keyboard with all the electronical parts out. They're operating. His other children would be in the other room. These are young cats now, building computers. He's taught everybody this, right? But in regards to the talking box, Jerome Derrickson, who was the same person that interviewed me, who also ended up being my first saxophone student, because on the road he was like, come on, man, teach me my scales, man. Teach me this, teach me that. I really want to learn. And he was a tenor player. He was the tenor player as well as the road manager. I said, yeah, man, I'll teach you. You'll be my first saxophone student. Well, Jerome ended up with Zapp, Roger Troutman Zapp. He was the official horn player, playing alto. Him and a trumpet player from Cincinnati. And he would invite me to the Funk Fest every year they come through. And Roger, he was trying to give Roger an edge, and Bruce said, I got just the thing for him. You just let him. And it was this pig nose amplifier. It's a very little small box, tape all around it with a hose where you plug it into whatever, and you put the hose in your mouth. And when you play the keyboard, the sound is coming through here, but you're moving your lips, right? Yeah, Bruce Thompson. No joke. No joke. He never got it patented, I don't think, but yeah, Bruce Thompson. No joke, Anyway.
So basically, just getting back to Bruce for a second, like Bruce, he had the tapes in his from my general understanding, Bruce Thompson had the the second album, the 24 Karat Black second album, Gone the Promises of Yesterday, in his basement for around 30 plus years or so. He just had it sitting in his basement.
Bruce kept so many tapes, analog tapes, and at the same time, he's transferring analog data to digital data on floppy disk, okay? I don't think he ever got around to making the transfer on that recording session. You gotta keep in mind, this particular recording session, the whole time we were on the road, Dale had us practicing 5 albums of rhythm and horn tracks that we would perform. I mean, the man was pure genius, man. That we would perform every night wherever we played, okay? And his goal was to get to Chicago. Once he got to Chicago, he would have us record them, okay? His other goal was for us to do all 5 albums in record time. The whole idea was to make history, which he did. He invited the concert master, George Soti, to the recording session, okay? Within less than 48 hours, we recorded straight through 5 albums of material. 5 albums of rhythm tracks and 5 albums of horn tracks, okay? And those 5 albums, we rehearsed every day on the road, okay? And you gotta understand, when it came to rehearsal, Dale was military, man. He was straight up, and Bruce having had basic training in the Air Force. We both went at each other to be music director for 24 Karat Black. You know, it was a voting thing. It was me against Bruce and Bruce against me, and Bruce won. You know, which made him the better guy anyway, because his keyboards were monster, and he had that military training, and I was down in that. But I felt like I could do it as well with Bruce as one of the members, and me as a music director as well. You know, so but he won as a music director, and he held on to all of those tapes. What happened was his basement flooded during a rain season in Chicago. I never will forget that. He lived not far. Matter of fact, we lived very close to each other before I left for Asia. He lived in Dix. I lived in Dixmoor, and he lived in what was called I can't remember, Dalton, Illinois. I lived in Dixmoor. He lived. It'll come to me when I can think of it, when I'm not thinking of it. But we were 10 minutes away from each other walking. Okay. At this time, I'm with Junior Wells, Johnny Taylor. I'm doing different. He's recording everybody, man, from his crib, you know, digitally. Anyway, that's pretty much what happened. The tapes ended up waterlogged, except for the ones that he had already digitally transferred and those that he could save. He was heartbroken about that, man. You know, it really broke his spirit that happened, you know. And I had to tell him, man, Bruce, listen, man, you have to keep moving, because, you know, time is not going. And he was busy taking care of his children. I mean, he had 4 boys and a daughter, okay? You know, and a very strong, supportive wife who was in nursing school. Or was a nurse at the time, going for her to become an MD, I think. And he had the support of his mom, who, like I said, was either a circuit court judge or a federal judge. You know, well, Thompson's. That's how we are. You know.
What was your experience like working with the late Dale O. Warren? How was your experience working with him?
Dale, like I said, was an alien, man. He saw the future. All the stuff that you see happening now, he was explaining to us that you would go into a place, instead of dropping a quarter in for a jukebox, you'd be able to choose your video, and there would be no visual, there would be no audio without visual. He was explaining this to us back in the 70s, okay? Consequently, a great deal of our live performances had skits. Like Niambi was telling you, you know, they bring coffins on the stage. There'd be impromptu skits that while the music was playing. And if you ever listen to Isaac Hayes' Hot Buttered Soul, of course, yeah, then you knew Dale's style. It was the first time you had the long playing album.
Organized. He orchestrated the strings to Walk On By.
Yes, Walk On By. It's a lot of work Dale did. If you ever listen to The Emotions, Show Me How, that was Dale Warren, the arranger on the session. Dale did quite a bit of work that, you know, but, you know, you have to be able to read. You have to read footnotes. You have to read credits in order to know who Dale was. You know, he's not on the album with his face smiling, you know, all this ego tripping stuff that goes on today. These were professionals, man. They worked the business from the background, because the background was where the money was made. You know, they didn't give Dale Warren the Rolls Royce RV. You know. Dale would get paid for the session and continue to put his ideas together, because it was what he loved doing. Again, Dale was, like I say, an alien, man. When I say alien, I mean he had superior intelligence. he had an intelligence. He used to come to my room. He'd be composing a piece, like he had to do the score for the Klansman. So he had a piece called Tempestaquaces, and he had wrote it out, and he's trying to hear it. He's writing it out without a piano, and he's once he wrote it out, he played his viola over it, but he wanted to hear the harmony part. So he would come to my room and wake me up. Man, get your soprano. I get my soprano, and we would practice it together. You know, to hit so he could hear if that's what he actually wrote, if he wrote it correctly, and you know how it would sound against the other pieces. There was an inspiration, man. Really, musically, a wonderful inspiration, and his theater ideas for the concept on stage. His enthusiasm that you got to remember, we were all young except for maybe Niambi. And we were his pet project for Stax Records, you know. That was my experience. But he would really come alive in the studio. If you could see him in the studio, he was like a kid. He was like a baby in a candy store, man. He was and what I learned from him is not everything has to be written out. You know, you can get to the studio and talk things down, like, you know, what do they call it? Graphic composition, you know, which is something I learned at Columbia College. Yeah, I had already knew about graphic composition before graphic composition was popular. And before my college professors would give me courses, I already knew the subject matter, you know, from messing around with Dale, you know. So, yeah, like I said, he was an alien entity who was living in the future. Very sensitive brother, man. I mean, his sensitivity, imagine the vibration of a viola string and how you have to keep the note. You know, vibrato sometimes, and then sometimes that note, it's gotta be perfect. That was his sensitivity level. So wherever we played, the music was very sensitive. The dynamics were correct. That was another stickler of Dale, dynamics. We would practice from pianissimo being the quietest to triple forte being the loudest, which means we would take quarter notes like da, 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 da. The whole band had to play quarter notes together, okay? Da, 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 to forte, going from quarter notes to, going from eighth notes to quarter notes to 16th notes, you know, da 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 da, and this is how he rehearsed us, man. You know, it was
played on the sessions that would ultimately become Gone Are the second album, Gone Are the Promises of Yesterday, correct?
Say that again. What's your question? Somebody was sending me a message, kind of distracting.
Okay, no problem. No, I was just saying, so you basically played on the sessions that would ultimately become the second album, Gone Are the Promises.
Yeah, all the alto saxophone parts and all the solos of the alto saxophone, that's me.
What was your experience like playing on what would become ultimately become that album? How was your experience like playing on those sessions?
Oh, it was interesting because we had already rehearsed the music, but I hadn't rehearsed the solos. So the only thing that would get an extra take would probably be if you requested to do the solo again, or you requested, but the rhythm and the drum track, the rhythm tracks and the horn tracks were locked. They were already locked because we had rehearsed them for, I don't know how long, how many months we had rehearsed every day to lock those. So when we got there, 5 albums was like one album, you know? 5 albums of material was like one album. It was great. It was good to see George Solti in You know, that man and I have an interesting history as well, because long after 24 Karat Black, I ultimately ended up with a job at Orchestra Hall. And that job entailed me assisting the bassoonist of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra in learning how to improvise on tenor saxophone, okay? It was an interesting job because I was like the black guy that nobody really understood. What does he do, you know? Everybody else was there, security and maintenance. And Burl Lane had me there with another guy named Captain somebody who was head of security. They had me there on special assignments, you know, doing. So I would help the piano tuner. There's a piano tuner. I don't know if people know this, but there's a piano tuner for each orchestra. The New York Symphony Orchestra, the Chicago Symphony Orchestra, the California. That same piano tuner tunes the piano from the East Coast to the West Coast. And he would come to Chicago. You got 5 pianos, Steinways, Yamahas, Bosendorfer. Your Bosendorfer goes octave lower than the regular piano. It goes to contrabass. And I would help him tune it playing my originals. And he's like, man, you can play a little, huh? I'm like, and CSO people, I don't know if you know anything about the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. They won Grammy Awards for decades, every year for decades. But if you look up Chicago Symphony Orchestra, you'll find that everybody there is a musician. From the clerk to the typist in the office, to the gopher that goes gets coffee, you know. I think the only people who may not have been musicians were maybe the cleaning maintenance or the maintenance people or the security people. So it was really interesting because there was an event that occurred. I ended up in the hospital and George Solti sent me, I was very touched. He sent me flowers, you know, get well soon type flowers. I never expected that from him. But it let me know that he remembered us, okay, from 24 Karat Black, you know, because, you know, I mean, I don't think if one of the other maintenance guys, if a maintenance guy ended up in the hospital, or if I must have made an impression. Let me put it this way, okay? Because how often do you get flowers from the concert master of the Chicago Symphony Orchestra? You understand?
Are you in touch with any of the other other members of the group?
Say that again.
Are you in touch with any of the remaining or the other members of the group, 24 Karat Black?
I try to stay in contact with Jerome. Every now and then we hit each other. We hit each other on Facebook. Niambi, she comments on my SoundCloud often. Bruce's children, you know, I'm like their uncle. They're producing rappers right now. They're producing video right now. They have both Anthony Thompson and I'm trying to remember his older brother's name. They'll kill me if I can't remember because I'm like their big uncle, you know, in Japan, right? He's ready to come here and work, you know. But yeah, I stay in contact with Bruce's children, basically. Just before Bruce passed, he was telling me, man, these people don't understand. Well, you know, you got to understand, Bruce would take a group to Europe every year for the church, for singing gospel music. He would take I said, okay, man, you handle Europe, and I'm going to take Asia. He said, man, that's a bet. I said, together we can, you know. I ended up in Hong Kong and Taiwan, and I was taking contracts. The last contract Bruce and I worked on together was for an artist out of Birmingham, England. He was a blues artist. And his producer, or his executive producer, was from Germany. The German guy came in town, and Bruce said, "Listen, we got a meeting. I want you to be the contractor on the gig." He said, "Because you know all the blues musicians from playing with Johnny Taylor and from playing with Ann Peebles and from playing with Junior Wells and Otis Clay. You know, I want you to snatch some of them cats. You know, if you can't get Ray Charles as trombone player." I'm like, "Cool, man. You know, I'm down with it." And that's the last thing we did together. Of course, Paul Serrano. You may not ever heard of Paul Serrano, PS Studios.
Name sounds familiar.
Okay, PS Studios is where all your emotions, Earth, Wind, and Fire collaborations went down. PS Studios is where Ramsey Lewis went down. Peebo Bryson. Who else? Oh man, Paul was doing everybody. And Paul tried to get a studio in California. And the funny thing about Paul and my dad were old friends. They had a group together. Paul Serrano, my dad on tenor, and check this out. You ever heard of Charles Stepney?
Of course, yeah, the Chess Records.
Charles Stepney on piano. Okay.
Oh, that man, that's another guy that's an unsung hero. Charles Stepney.
Man, listen, can I tell you briefly a story about CS?
Absolutely, go ahead.
Because of my involvement in ethnomusicology, which is the study of the ethnicity of music, you know, thanks to Dr. Sotoli from South Africa. He was my professor at Northeastern Illinois University. The annex, the CICS annex, which was an African, Caribbean, Asian annex. We didn't deal with nothing European. We dealt with everything African. So the library was golden. It was phenomenal. When I began to listen to Earth, Wind, and Fire, I began to hear the ethnomusicological elements of our culture and the metaphysical. I don't know if this is making any sense, but music is highly spiritual. And the metaphysical elements in his sound. So, and later on, my dad told me, "Yeah, man, Charles and I are old friends. You know, we go back. You know, me and him and Paul." And so they loved me. You know, whenever they saw me, you know, I'd go through and copy it or play horn parts or whatever. However, but I had a friend, Phil Perry's wife, Lillian Tynes. Matter of fact, she's on one of my recordings at Universal. I recorded a tune called Black Madonna. I didn't want her to sing lyrics. I just needed her voice. Da, 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 da. Anyway, that's what she did. And she kept telling me, "Listen, I want you to come with me by Charles's house and meet his daughter and see how we can help her." You know, I said, "Help her with what?" He says, "Charles has all this music stacked up to the ceiling that she doesn't have a clue what to do with." I said, "Are you joking?" She said, "No." So they lived in South Shore. Lillian, we called her Tang at the time. She lived in South Shore. This is Phil Perry's wife. And we went, she's Phil Perry's wife now. But we went and saw all of this stuff and I forget his daughter's name. I think it was Cynthia. Anyway, I can't remember her name right off. But anyway, I told her I would do my best to assist her in getting his music heard, because Charles was another alien, pure genius. We just happened to be the same birth sign, Aries, as well as Herbie Hancock, Aries. It was interesting, man, because the people I was around, I kept trying to push them to, and at the time it was the horn section for Ann Peebles. We were the horn section for Ann Peebles when she was coming out of recovery. You probably heard of Ann. "I Can't Stand the Rain."
Absolutely. I think Missy Elliott ended up sampling her. Yeah.
Yeah. She did her world tour when she came out of rehab. We stayed at her house in Memphis. I always end up in Memphis, man. Whenever I take a gig, for some reason, I end up staying. I always go back to Memphis, you know,
Right, right.
not to see Graceland, but to see, see my people and how they living, then we're out of there and we go to New York. Anyway, yeah. So that's a whole nother story. A lot of history here. I got to write a book, man. I don't know. Maybe I'll call Zach Schoenfeld and have him write my book too.
So you managed to meet Charles Stepney in person?
We bumped heads at passing to and from PS Studios while he was working. My dad was a personal friend of his. Whenever I saw him, I wanted to tell him that, but he was busy, man. Charles was very intense. He was very intense and very busy, So I never saw the opening, the space. I was always sensitive. When you're around cats like that, you don't want to disturb their space.
Right.
Yeah, because they're in a creative space that you don't want to mess with, And I had a lot of respect for that space. So I do think I bumped into him a couple of times at PS Studios. I do remember seeing him and being in awe of his aura, but not like we sat down and talked and kicked it and that kind of thing, So no, I can't say I met him, but I did meet his daughter. His daughter was very intense about getting his music out there. And the way they did him when he passed, the way the record companies tried to sue him for the rights to his music, it was really intense, man. It was really sad, But anyway.
Yeah, he's like the Black George Martin, as far as I'm concerned.
When you say George who?
George Martin, like the producer of the Beatles, he's like that for us.
Yeah. That too. But you got to remember, Charles produced Minnie Riperton, Back to My Garden. Charles produced Rotary Connection. That was his brainchild. Some things with Richard Evans he produced. Charles was a producer on a lot of different levels that people don't know. I don't know much about Richard Martin.
No, George Martin, Beatles, George Martin.
George Martin. Okay. I don't know much about him, but I do know that even my son right now, I have my son studying Charles Stepney's work. The way he used every instrument. The
orchestral arrangements were like just magic, pure magic.
Man, he is the Earth, Wind, and Fire sound. See, a lot of people did not understand the Earth, Wind, and Fire sound spectrum. Only producers understand sound spectrums. And see, the beauty of Dale Warren, he taught us this at a very young age. Sound spectrums, okay? Where the drum is, where the bass is, where the guitar is, where everybody's got a space that's dancing. The key to the sound spectrum is once you record it, if you don't have nothing but the bass, it's making you dance. If you pull everything back but the guitar, it's making you dance. You pull everything back but the horns, it's making you dance. Cats like James Brown understood that. Not everybody understood that. I've been around people who write music, never played it. This Italian cat. I got a job. I was working for the mayor's office, Economic Cultural Development. And the job was so boring, man. I applied for another job that was like half a block away. I said, well, man, I'm here at the mayor's office, but I'm sitting at the desk cutting out paper dowels. This is not going to work. I'm 20-something years old. I just left 24 Karat Black. I got my first child on the way. Say, I'm working, but I'm not working. So I applied for a music director with Free Street Theater. So I went over to Free Street Theater. The guy hired me to be music director, but, he was a little on the loose wrist side, And when he auditioned another cat that was on the loose wrist side, you know, like him, he decided to make me the assistant music director and hired Zito to be the music director. Well, Zito knew music, but he was the type of cat that would write the music out without hearing it, then bring it to the rehearsal and have us, he'd want us to play what he wrote out. Well, there was no context. You understand what I'm saying? There are musical notes, but there are no context. I said, look, did you play this? He said, well, I played a little of it. I said, but, you know, and the band that I had formed a group called Numero. The band that I had, that was me being assistant music director, my band's rehearsing all the time, right? So they're looking at the chart and everybody read music and the piano player's going like, nah, see, this, I don't understand. It's not, you know, see, unless we, you know, you know, and I had to teach them my sound spectrum, which I learned from Dale, which made everything groove. Everything had the groove, but Zito's music didn't have a groove. You know what I'm saying? So we tried to apply his concept to our concept. It didn't work out. And we just let Zito be the music director while we, you know, wrote our own music and our own parts for the different play. It tried to include some of his melodies. Okay. Yeah. So
let me ask you something. Just to reel it back into 24 Karat Black for a second.
Okay.
You know, being that you played on the second album, Gone All the Promises of Yesterday, how did you feel when Kanye West sampled one of the compositions off the album, I Want to Make Up, for rapper Pusha-T's song entitled Infrared? How did you feel about that?
I didn't hear about that till Niambi had some people contact me, and then she contacted me. And it's, you know, sampling is a new way of doing a thing these days. It was coming into existence back then. I didn't feel any kind of way, actually. But at the same time, I understand that real music, the school that I'm from, like today, they call DJs musicians, which is, you know, I guess you could pass for a musician, but where I'm from, man, you know, you know a C from a C sharp, a B from a B flat, you know, all 12 scales, you know, all 12 keys, you know, I mean, where I'm from, man, you know, like today, you got everybody jumping up on the stage, grabbing a microphone. They got bars, right? Everybody got bars, right? Where I'm from, the way I grew up, man, you jump up on a stage and you can't play, especially in New York. I don't know if you know the history of New York. They will take you to the back of the alley, whoop your ass, tell you to get out of there and don't come back until you have mastered your instrument. You have no right to be on a microphone, okay? Now you got everybody on a microphone, man. And you got people sampling stuff that people actually sat down and wrote out and who actually know music, you know? So it's no real way for me to feel about it. They call it progress. But do me a favor, listen to your radio today, okay? And then go back to the 80s and the 90s and listen to some of the stuff back then. Okay? Then go back to Earth, Wind and Fire's second album with Shining Star for You to See What Your Love and Julie Be. Yeah, that album and The Way of the World. Because those were masterpieces. Those were masterpieces, okay? Where Stepney actually rehearsed the rhythm section, same way Dale will rehearse us. Then he come in with the charts for the orchestra after he rehearsed the Phoenix horns and made sure their parts were tight. Gave them the music, making it. And these are simple parts. It's just they in a pocket that's locking in the sound spectrum, okay? So when it all comes together, it may sound complicated and beautiful, but actually, the simpler it is, the more complicated and more beautiful it appears in the sound spectrum. And you have to be a master to understand these kind of things, you know. So I didn't feel any particular way other than the fact that why aren't we getting paid?
Which segues into my next question. I was just, this is perfect timing because I was going to ask you, why haven't the 24 karat black been properly compensated for monetarily for their work, their highly influential work that they put out over the years? Why is that?
A lot of it has to do with Dale being the genius he is and being as busy as he was, and yet not, properly taking care of probably certain paperwork. And then Stax Records folded during his reign, okay? They have us in the Stax Museum. You know, you can go see 24 Karat Black in the Stax Museum in Memphis. But at the same time, a lot of it has to do with people looking for those loopholes, okay? Stax shut down, so records were misplaced. All kind of stuff is not in order, and there are people who take advantage, okay? But one brother to another, being from Chicago, expatriated to Japan, I would tell Kanye like this, yo, bro, if you're gonna talk it, you got to walk it. Don't get out there as a Jesus freak talking about, justice and being right and you ain't paid the people that you sampling from. That's a little bit hypocritical, yay. You know what I'm saying? Go on and write that check. Go on and take care of your business. Because granted, the genius Dale Warren, who put all of that together, my dear friend who's deceased, my mentor, he would want that for us. You got all these elaborate, missions with you and your ex-wife or wife, whatever it is. You're all in the news, saying all this wonderful, we're going to get the people out of prison. Well, guess what, man? We want reparations. I'm going to run for president. Man, just write us our check, okay? Take a second, go on and write the check, and get that out the way, man, before this becomes like, TMZ news or something, or really a problem. My dad used to say something. He said, look, man, when you walk in 50 miles, he said, if you get a little stone in your foot, if you get a little stone in your shoe, he said, you may walk a block or two and it don't bother you. You may walk a mile or two and it don't bother you. He said, but the wise thing to do is go and stop for a minute and take the stone out your shoe, man. And go on and walk the 50 miles. Because that stone is going to cause you a big problem trying to get 50 miles with that little bitty stone bothering your foot. So I would tell Kanye like this. One Chicago brother from another, yay, go on and write that check, man. Stop playing games, bro. You saw something in it. You wanted to be a part of history some kind of way. You made your history. You don't want history to turn on you, man. And they coming at you every kind of which way they can right now. Because you can only go so far this way in the industry. And then they come at you, man. That's why I don't mess with it. I don't mess with it. I'm independent. I will be independent. I will help other people who are in the industry. But my spiritual foundation, they don't want me in the industry. Just me around industry would blow it up. It's too much. It's too much of, how can I say, of my creator's positive energy involved in the things that I do. There would be too much friction And that's not where I'm trying to be right now. It's about harmony for me. For me, it's about harmony and positivity, and like what I wrote to you, okay? I wrote this to you, I put it in the text. It's in regards to the celestial musician. It's kind of small right now. I can't read. Let me see if I can pull it up. I'll read it to you, and this kind of explains it, man, in a nutshell. And I feel bad that everything that Kanye is looking for, I could take him there and show it to him, you know, without him, you know, trying to be living in a living in a where is he living? Living in a stadium, or living wherever he's trying to live, to show people that he's down to earth and whatever. Man, you're not down to earth till you cut the check, yeah. Okay? And allow me to show you spiritually what you're looking for right now. This is in regards to the celestial musician. All of us who are musicians know this, okay? Earth, Wind, and Fire, Charles Stepney. This is the reason why their music is legendary and timeless. It's in perpetuity. So it says that while you are assembled some beautiful melodies on Urantia being Earth, you have not progressed musically, nearly so far as many of your neighboring planets and Satania. And Satania basically means this galaxy, okay? This galaxy where Satan is in charge. If Adam and Eve had only survived, they would have had music in reality. But the gift of harmony, so large in their nature, has been so diluted by strains of unmusical tendencies. Again, let's talk about sampling. All right? It might work electronically. All right? And there's a positive use for it, all right? Like paying the musicians who actually performed it. That's a very positive use for sampling. You have had tendencies that only once in 1,000 mortal lives is there any great appreciation of harmonics. Okay, but this is the key right here. But be not discouraged. Someday, a real musician may appear on Urantia. Urantia is another word for Earth. And whole peoples will be enthralled by the magnificent strains on his melodies. One such human being could forever change the course of the whole nation, even the entire civilized world. It is literally true. Melody has power. A whole world to transform. Forever, music will remain the universal language of men, angels, and spirits. Harmony is the speech of Havana. Havana being heaven, okay? I'm just translating it for you. So everything that he's trying to imply and I'm sorry, yeah. You know, you got to
hear the track though. Did you get a chance to hear the Pusha-T track Infrared?
Not yet. No, I haven't heard it.
But you heard about it though.
If you send it to me, I'd like to hear it. Was my sax on there?
Oh no, actually it wasn't. No, it was actually like the other portions of this, like the other background sounds that are in the song.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. All right. Then I haven't missed much. But you know, all of that, Dale had us all participate in the writing of it together, okay, and rehearsals of it together. Now, I haven't heard Pusha T. I've heard other things by Pusha T. Matter of fact, I think Pusha T came through our studio in Okinawa. We have a studio in Okinawa that we just moved to Cambodia. Me and my business partner. He's from New York. But at the same time, music is a spiritual thing. The way I was taught music, by a good deal of music that I studied was from Muhammad University of Islam on 73rd and Stony Island. And it was taught by Professor Muhammad, who had a PhD from Harvard. And he taught that music makes a society. that if you give a people decadent music, it creates a decadent society. Okay? So you take a look at Chicago today. You take a look at New York today, and then you turn on the radio. Okay? All right? It's another reason why I live in Japan. Okay? Because there's not one grocery store you can go in and you're not hearing music. All right? Not noise, music. You know, people who actually know music, you know, and I'm not cracking or trying to be funny or anything. And a lot of what we're experiencing back home in America, the rhythm tracks are hidden. I love some of the beats, you know, but what you got on top of it in terms of melody, all right? And what you have to understand about the science of the art of music, rhythm is your physical aspect of music. It's the lowest vibration, rhythm. Okay, bass and drum. All right. Melody is the mental aspect of music. Melody. That's why you can hear something, and for some reason you wake up, you humming that song, you only heard it like once. It's locked into your mental. Okay. Harmony is the spiritual aspect of music. All right. Harmony, when you take two notes and put them together, you got one note. There's one thing, you have one note. That's harmony. That's all about the spirit, my brother. That's not about monetizing, weaponizing, and then running to go get the bag.
Are you in contact? Are you in contact with the Numero group that put out the Gone Are the Promises of Yesterday album?
Absolutely. They send me statements on a regular. It's in Chicago. The interesting thing about the name of the organization is it's the same name I named my group that was working for Free Street Theater.
Yeah, I noticed that when you had mentioned Numero, that was one of your earlier groups. I'm like, wait a minute, that was
they probably
put out the second album.
We were well known amongst the hippie upper middle class, and we were all original. 3 white cats, 3 brothers, and we wrote all our own music, and we played everybody else's music too. You know, cats. We were at a club on the north side of Chicago called Colette's. Colette's was known for us being the house band. Us being the house band there. Buddy Miles would come through. Gavin Christopher. I don't know if you ever heard of Gavin Christopher. No. Gavin Christopher wrote "Once You Get Started" for Shaka Khan. Gavin Christopher wrote "Stars in Your Eyes" for Herbie Hancock. Gavin passed away recently, but monster producer, monster keyboardist, monster. He was just, you know, an awesome cat. But a lot of people who were performing at Rat Souls across the street, who was a very famous international live house, would stop by, and after the gig, and the after set was at Numero where my band was. And it was amazing, man. Cats would come, people would come in requesting our originals, you know, stuff that wasn't out yet. And from there, we had a platform whereby which we did colleges. We did Grinnell College, where Herbie Hancock graduated from. Matter of fact, you ever heard of Phil Upchurch?
Definitely. He used to collaborate with Charles Stepney a lot on Chess Records, on a lot of the Chess records.
Phil.
Part of the Rotary Connection.
Yeah, exactly. So, and Phil, it's a funny thing. We got real popular and started doing things out of Columbia College and Universal Studios. And Phil invited us to his studio because we needed studio time to get our demo out and to these colleges. And he said, well, man, come on, I'll give you free studio time. He said, just get me on the gig, man. I said, okay, let's see what we can do, because my guitar player had to connect. And we got him on the gig, and they had Phil Upchurch at Grinnell College opening for us, okay? A group Numero that they had never heard, okay? And we were like in the future. We were doing stuff that was just all original and in the future. Okay. I had to tell the people at Grinnell College, I said, whoa, wait a minute. Wait 1 second. That's Phil Upchurch. Have you read his history? No, but numero. I said, no. We're opening for Phil Upchurch. Phil Upchurch is the main act, okay? So he had to have his status. You know, I had to respect his eldership, man. You know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I mean, we young cats, but we were killing their college radio waves. They loved us, okay? And the college radio were playing us all the time. All original music, you know. And it had a lot to do with how we recorded, because what would happen is Malcolm Chisholm, the audio engineering professor at Columbia College, he would call me up every year. Okay, man, you got a group? I said, what's up, Mal? He said, I need your group so these students can do some test recording and I can pass them or either flunk them on and they would give us free studio time. And we didn't get paid to do the session. We didn't get paid to do the session, but he would give us the recordings, okay? After each student did their mixing and editing, we would pick the best one, and that would be our demo, okay? It was a, you know, transactional type of good deal that we would do every year for Malcolm Chisholm. If you look up Malcolm Chisholm, Malcolm was in the future too, man. He had a magnetic cards to get into his crib back in the 70s. You know, he was like, a lot of these cats were like in the future, man. You know, I'm saying all that to say what? What was your question again? I'm like on a tangent.
No, you pretty much answered the question. And I was just, and once again, it segues into my next question, which is, in conclusion, what are you up to presently?
Man, you need to ask me what I'm not up to presently. It's like, okay.
Renaissance man, huh?
Not so much. Let's see. First of all, after 2.5 world tours, Junior Wells, Ann Peoples, Otis Clay, Johnny Taylor, I've done the Montreal Jazz Festival. I've done the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame at SOBs down there in Manhattan. That's a story I got to tell somebody, man. With David Bowie and Iman was there, and Nile Rodgers, and I don't know if you know the head of the B-52s. What's his name? Yeah. What's his name? Fred Schneider. Fred Schneider. He was trying to get me to he was producing Eddie James at the time. So I said, well, listen, man, I got some tracks I can slide you. A track that I wrote called Holding On. I think she would be good at, you know. He said, well, go on, get me the tape. The other cat from Talking Heads, who else? What's his name?
David Byrne.
David Byrne. He's with that other boy in London right now. Aren't they mates or partners in marriage or something? Okay. David Byrne and Elton John.
Oh, Elton John. Okay.
Yeah, Elton John and David Byrne. Aren't they partners now? They're like lovers or something. Anyway, let me get off the gay stick because I'm not there. Anyway, my point is, in this particular gig, David Byrne, Fred Schneider, Nile Rodgers, Iman, David Bowie, we're all sitting at the same table. We're all at the gig for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I'm on stage. Then when I come off the stage, I'm at the table. Nile Rodgers wants to dance with my date. She's a New Yorican who showed up in a limo. Beautiful girl. And very, very dedicated, even though now has like 3 girls with him. He's asking me, he said, yeah, man, can I dance with your girl? I said, look, man, I tell you what, I spoke to you when I came in. You didn't say nothing. You know, I said, but ask her. And I leaned back because he was sitting here and she was sitting here. I said, but ask her. And he asked, yeah, do you mind if you want to dance? If you mind dancing? And she looked at me and smiled and looked at him and said, I don't think so. He's there with 3 other chicks, man. You know, it's like, but he asking my girl if he can dance with her. Okay? Ain't spoke to nobody, you know, just rude. Uh, 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 and at the same time, David Bowie's cracking up because he's looking at her. He's looking at her the whole time. I'm not going to say her name, okay? But she's Nuyorican, Puerto Rican, Nuyorican, fine as silk thread. Showed up in the limo. People were stuttering when they came to tell me that she had arrived, and you know, and I'm like, okay, but ultimately, what happened was Iman looked at David Bowie because for some reason Bowie couldn't take his eyes off of him, man. Iman looked at Bowie and said, David, I'm ready to go. Call the driver. I'm ready to go. You know, and he was like, yeah, okay. I'm like, girl, you causing a lot of tension here tonight. Yeah, some real stories, man. It's all got to go in my book. But yeah, I'm here. Basically, my son just dropped an album. I assisted him with that. My son's singing both in Japanese and in English. The name of the album is Blessed. I'm happy to send you some of the data on it. It's all digital streams on his album. Blessed, the one track that's promoting his album is called Unconquered, where I teamed up with Phantasm Records and Nate Held in California, who sent me some tracks and I doctored on some tracks and we put his song together. My daughter, who's a world-class dancer, she's my oldest here. She's already been the youngest winner of the B-Girls in Germany and at MGM in Las Vegas. She's now choreographing. She also choreographed my son's video. She's choreographing Malika Yasmin. My son's name is Hakeem Malik. And my youngest son, my youngest child, has a 6-year basketball scholarship. You know, that's a whole nother story. That's where Kobe Bryant's dad, he was the coach for the town I live in, their basketball team, their professional basketball team. Joe Jellybean Bryant was the coach, I think he retired, for the Rising, Fukuoka Rising. That was the name of the team. And he came through, he said, look, man, come on through. I got tickets for the boys, blah, 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 blah. You know, come on down, man. You know, and it was five days of basketball. And so I took my sons almost every day. My youngest son, he fell in love with the game, man. Plus, he saw this big, tall, black dude running everything. You know, he was in charge. You know, I think that's what my son liked mostly about the whole thing. But Joe, when he came to the sideline to pet him on the head and say, hey, man, you enjoy the game? And my son is like, you know, I don't know, he's like 5 or 6. He's looking at him and said, yeah. And he said, okay, next time I come here, I'm going to need you to suit up. Man, this cat been suited up ever since. You know, Daddy, when Coach coming back? So when the thing with Kobe happened, man, I got a call from both. I'm over here in the office in the studio. My sons woke me up about 4 in the morning, about 3, 4 in the morning, man. And Daddy, did you hear about Coach? Well, what about Coach? Oh, you didn't hear. I said, what you mean didn't hear? What? Oh, Daddy, turn on the news. I'm like, turn on the news? Man, just tell me. Is Coach all right? You know, I'm thinking, is Jellybean all right? Because he's a beautiful brother, man. I got nothing but love for the brother. The way he inspired my youngest. My youngest on a 6-year scholarship because of the inspiration a little bit that he put in him. And it wasn't much, but it was just what he knew exactly what he needed. You know what I'm saying? Right. You know, that same way I would imagine he coached his son, Kobe. But when I heard the news, man, it broke my heart. I tried to contact them, and I couldn't get through because so many people. My mentor over here is a gentleman named Mal Adams. He was the head of Asian CNN News, the CNN News correspondent, a Hall of Fame winner in Nebraska. He has a network called Japan Journal. He's interviewed everybody, man. And he was the one that introduced me to Jelly Bean. We have a association here called Japan American Friendship Association. And it gets together every year and we all come together. Japan African American Friendship Association. So we all come together. You'd be surprised at the number of very special people from Fox News and CNN and cats from remember Solar Records?
Yeah, Dick Griffey back in the day.
Dick Griffey, Solar Records. Who were the people that did Just Be Good to Me? If you need just the cat that wrote that, I can't think of their name right now. He lives here in Tokyo, you know, so there's a team of cats here that when you put a project together, whether it's behind Japanese or American, we got the bases for Madonna, and matter of fact, we did a few gigs together in Tokyo. We got Phil, I forget his name, but he was the keyboardist for Maze and for Roy Ayers. It'll come to me when I can feel something. I can't. Philip Wu. He's here. I did a gig with him some years back with Madonna's bass player on bass. And, you know, we're all here, man, working, doing what we can. On the flip side of things, on the spiritual side of things, I'm an elder of a Muslim community who's been to Mecca and who's been part of the Muslim World League back when I was 25, okay, some time back after 24 Karat Black. Still developing my spirituality. I'm a Sufi. I don't know if you know what a Sufi is, but it's a mystic. A mystic being in tune with all the harmonies and harmonics of the musical realm, because in some schools of Islam, they believe music is forbidden. But while in Saudi Arabia, in Mecca, sitting down with some of the scholars and the sheikhs, they explained to me and ultimately gave me permission to go ahead and continue because I'm spiritually rooted. Okay, my sheikh said, go ahead, you passed the test, you now a Hajj, you spiritually rooted. But the way they explained to me is how you can disturb the fabric of universes with just one wrong note. Okay? And I'll tell you in a minute, there are no wrong notes. But there are frequencies, there's harmony, and then there's not harmony, it's called discophony. That's what it's called, discophony.
Okay, well, any final words?
Basically, man, I'm here. I'm recording on a regular, using all this latest digital software, Logic, FL, Pro Tools, Akai, Output, Reasons. There's a lot of sampling on Output. They got samples for days, but it's instruments, not songs. Not other people's music, just song, just other people's vocals and instruments. Native instruments, creators of machine plugins. You can listen to my original compositions, all collaborations on my SoundCloud, my YouTube channel, Vimeo channel. You can also view live performances that I'm doing here. My last couple of performances were with was for the Asian Chamber of Commerce, the International Asian Chamber of Commerce, where they wouldn't let me play with a band. They paid me so much money to play by myself. allowed me to sell my CD at the front door. It was an unusual contract. I was paid before I even did the gig, and then they stuffed $100 bills all in my horn, man. My horn was almost muffled because there was so many $100 bills in the horn, and Asian culture, they just want to participate, right? So, they started sticking chopsticks with $100 bills in my horn, and I'm going like, why don't you try my pocket, Anyway, that, and I put my own band together in Okinawa. I lecture sometimes at OSIC, Okinawa Scientific Institute of Technology. OISC is the Okinawa Institute of Science and Technology. Let me get it right. Per Dr. Karen Lupertis. The only other things that I'm doing here, man, you can check it on let me mention Nikki Tall. Nikki Tall in Germany. Nikki Tall is a Greek German who's doing nothing but Nigerian music, okay? That he writes, okay? At the last gig I did, I was invited by the Nigerian committee in Japan to perform with Nikki Tall as a special guest. My son and I did the gig together. And there's a record company here now that we're working closely with called SAE Records, Sound of African Influence or something like that. And that's all that's going on, man. Listen to my SoundCloud. Listen to my my YouTubes. And please buy my son's CD, especially the one called Blessed. I'll send you some links, man. And I'd love to hook you up with my guy, Mel Adams, so you guys can have his history is much more interesting than mine. Trust me. Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, Dr. Shakir Suleiman, I'm sorry, pronouncing your last name correctly.
Suleiman. Suleiman means Solomon. Suleiman, or Solomon in Hebrew is Shlomo.
Suleiman.
Yeah, you remember.
No doubt.
You remember King Solomon in the Bible, right?
Yes.
My grandmother taught us we were direct descendants from the Suleiman tribe, from the Solomon tribe. So, where she got it from, maybe she got it from her parents. I don't know, but I've carried that with me since.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for coming on the program, and you're welcome to come back. You're welcome to come back anytime.
Listen, Eric, I appreciate you, man. Don't stop what you're doing. And every chance you get, tell Ye to cut the check.
I'll be sure to tell him.
All right. When he's out of one of them bipolar states, let him know it's time to cut the check. All right, brother. It's been a pleasure. And I do appreciate you. Let's do some back channeling and see how we can lock you into what's going on here in Japan amongst the African Americans that are expatriated, because I think you might be a little surprised. All right, my brother.
Sounds good. You have a good one, okay?
Yes, sir. It's been a pleasure.
Peace.